Greetings, chess players. My name is Chris Torres. Above me, you see FIDE Master James Eade. And if you are a fan of the show, you know we have a really great time together when we have these opportunities. And I like to surprise Jim a little bit with a game that he's a very good student of chess. Um, I think every game that I've ever thought about showing him, he's seen before. Um, and we'll be doing that in just a moment. But first, Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I've got no reason to complain, and no one will listen if I do complain.
That's funny. Um, so I've noticed that you've started a new project
Yes,
recently, and we're going to have time to talk about the Eade Foundation and such as well. But your new project has to do with helping people remain calm. Am I right?
yes, yes. I'm doing a show produced in Edge Studios in San Francisco, and it's all about calming down. Because I've noticed I grew up in the Vietnam Watergate era, and but I've never seen the country so polarized as it is today. So I think everyone just needs to relax because people get so hypersensitive and agitated. And there are practices that can help you calm down. For me, deep breathing is one of them. And so I just started a show, and one of the segments I have somebody called in, and he's very agitated about something, and he goes on a rant, and then we try to calm him down. It's just one part of his show, but yeah, I'm having fun. So
It sounds like a worthy project,
thank
and we will post links and all that good stuff. Because for chess players, guess what? Remaining calm is of utmost importance. You cannot
you.
think well if you're stressed, if you're too stressed at the chessboard. And so there is definitely huge crossover. So for today, I chose a game that I'm sure you're probably familiar with, and I've never looked at in great detail. I can't believe I've never looked at this game in great detail, considering who the players are. So let me get the dates and all that good stuff loaded real fast. Okay, there we go. So white today is going to be played by Mr. Robert James Fischer,
Oh,
and black is going to be played by Mikhail Tal. And you knew Tal, right, James?
I have met him,
Yeah.
yes, in 1995 at the Pan Pacific tournament in San Francisco. He was one of the players that I invited.
We
Yes.
can't see your face, Coach Tortoise. Uh-oh. Did it do that thing again? Let's see.
Uh,
Oh, it did that thing again. Yep. Megan. Haha. We'll call Megan in to fix my face. Thank you to the jollification in the chat. And of course, Robert James Fischer was maybe responsible for why you're here today in some way, right, Jim? Yeah, I mean, he
absolutely.
created a chess boom in the United States, and you are of that generation. How old were you about when when the Fischer boom was occurring? Say circa 1972. What were you doing?
I was 15 years old, 1972, and I played my first US chess tournament game. It was entirely due to Bobby Fischer. At the time, he was on the cover of Life magazine. He was in the New York Times every day, it seemed. And but it was the approach to qualifying for the U.S. Championship is what got me into chess and was following it. There was a show in New York City called by Shelby Lyman, and so they would in those days there wasn't the internet, so he would have a um, telegraph kind of situation where he could get the moves as they were being played, and he would post them, and he would have grandmasters analyze. So I became fascinated, and of course, Fischer went 6-0, 6-0, Taminoff, Larson. and then he beat Petrosian. Like what was it? I can't remember. It was like 5 to 2.5 or something like that. It was a
Mm-hmm.
wipeout of a former world champion. And so then he qualified to play Spassky. And by that time, I started, studying chess at home. And I went up to my dad set me up to go to the North Adams State College Chess Club where I met U.S. chess players, C players and B players mostly, but still they were stronger than I was, and I got up to their level very quickly. And then I became a class 8 player very quickly after that. But and they, I'm still too young to drive, so they would drive me to tournaments. So it was great. It was a wonderful introduction to
Yeah.
chess. And Bobby Fischer never played again, but he was the whole reason I got
He
started.
started a movement in the United States. I know. I have a lot of friends who were brought into chess because of Bobby Fischer. Why is it black? Let me double check. Doesn't look
Like,
black to us. Let me check the other screen here. Yeah, it's could be you. Go ahead and try reloading, and I think it'll work for you. Okay. So the game we're going to look at was played in what is it, Leipzig, Germany, I think. And let me see if I can get the date. This was played. I had it open a second ago. There we go. This was played in 1960, and it was at the Chess Olympiad. And we're going to see a French defense from Mikhail Tal. And Jim is an expert in the French. He's written the book on the French defense, and yeah, let's take a look. All right, so Fischer starts with e4, as he said, best by test, and then
I, I can't see the screen. Is there it's Fischer versus who?
it's Fischer versus Tal,
Ah,
and this is I'll tell you the yeah,
1960.
Leipzig.
Ah, got
Yeah,
it.
there you go.
Okay.
And it's a French defense. How fun. And then Tal plays e6. I don't think he played the French defense much, did he?
No, that played against Nick DeFermian in San Francisco, and Nick won a very instructive game. So, the French was part of Tal's repertoire, but normally he would play the Sicilian.
Cool, cool, cool. So he actually played it at that tournament you were running in San Francisco.
Yes, well, it was one of those games. It became a model game because DeFermian played it based on pawn structure, and he really gave a classic exhibition of how to play as white against the pawn
Yeah,
structure. He ended up giving black a poor pawn structure and just was mercilessly
I
exploiting it
I,
as a
I seem to recall seeing that game in the book you wrote. Let's see. Uh, Fischer plays d4, getting the center pawn. Um, Second one, if they don't meet you in the center, get a second center pawn. And then d5, of course. And then let me know when you want me to pause for a second, Jim. Knight c3.
sure.
This is, the main stuff. And then bishop b4.
This is the winner or variation of the picks is, and that's what I would play. So I'm not an expert in this particular version, but John Watson wrote a wonderful book on the French, and he covers the winner variation uh, in great detail. John Watson was one of the best chess authors uh, for many years. He wrote about the English opening, the French defense, and many other opening systems.
And the name, the winnower variation, what does that stem from? Do you know?
Well, Winnower was a player in the 19th century. Is that correct, Chris? You're more of an historian.
I'm having a hard time placing him in time, but yeah, he was a
Okay.
player for
Uh,
sure.
yes, and he was one of those players, never the top, but always invited to the top players and the tournaments. Let's see, he was born in 1838 in Warsaw, Poland. Passed away in 1919. So yeah, but his most of his best games came in the 19th century, in the 1800s, and he was a very strong player. But in a time where there were many players that were just a little bit better, and you could think of Chikarin, Tarrasch, these types of players were just a little bit better than Winnower. He was a tier below the very best, but he was a great player
and made a huge contribution.
He made this opening variation a mainstay in tournament play.
So Fischer, the bishop's pinning the knight, and that knight, of course, was defending our pawn on e4. So we need to do something about, because we don't want to lose our e4 pawn. Fischer pushes it to e5.
Response.
Okay.
And now in the center, and it's a spatial that chess is space. And if you can get more space than your opponent, your pieces have more room to maneuver than your opponent's does. And a piece's power is related to its maneuverability. So more space means more maneuverability, more power, more force. So this was considered by classical chess authorities to be better for white for a long time. But black has enormous resources to counterattack the center. And that was one of the things of the themes of the hypermodern school of chess in the 1920s. They came out and said, you can establish a center, but if I can break it up, then what do you got?
Mikhail Tal plays 4 c5, pawn to c5.
And you have a pawn chain, like the d4, e5 is a mini pawn chain, and one pawn is supporting the other. And the way you attack a pawn chain is at its base. So c5 is a totally natural move to play. c5, removing the base at d4, makes that e pawn on e5 a little more vulnerable.
And Bobby Fischer plays pawn a3.
You're putting the question to the bishop right away. You're going to retreat. You're going to the knight on c3 reestablishes the pawn c3 rather than d4.
So Tal backs away and keeps the pin, bishop a5.
Okay.
And Fischer plays 6b4.
This is really a startling move to be a pawn sacrifice. And in which you sacrifice a pawn at this stage of the game. Well, the reasons for sacrificing a pawn: gain space, gain mobility, gain tempo, gain tempi. In other words, the elements of are when you throw away a pawn for no material compensation. So this is this is not standard practice anymore, but in 1960 it was one of the ways of meeting the winnower.
And Tal does something a little interesting here. He plays cxd4. And the reason I think that's a little interesting is I think the more natural move, at least, to my eye, would be cxb4, because it was the b4 that was causing me a problem. Yeah, right. So cxd4. What do you think about that?
Well, accepting the gambit and refuted gambit, classically speaking, the natural response would be c takes b4. Mm-hmm. And then a takes b4, b takes b4, you're pinning the knight. So bishop d2 would be natural. And then now, evaluating that position, then white means the superior and has worth the pawn. Sure, who knows? But he's going on to d3. He's going to play queen to d4, possibly attacking the king side. So it's very dicey because there's open lines against the queen side. So where's the king going to go? Where's the king going to be safe? So this is obviously Fischer's thinking. And Tal is thinking, so I'm going to do something else.
Well, yeah. And then let's see. Bobby Fischer. So Tal kind of surprises me a little bit there with the CXD4. And now Bobby Fischer kind of surprises us a little bit because his knight's under attack by the pawn. And, many of us, I think the most natural move might be queen takes d4, but Bobby Fischer plays queen g4.
Right. Interesting move. And what he's saying is that you allow me to play queen g7, you're going to lose the rook. So yeah, I'm going to lose my knight on c. You're going to lose. You're going to mess up your. So there's no way I'm going to be able to cast, and I'm going to go king hunting after that. So it looks to me like has this threat of queen takes g7.
Let's see. Knight to e7 is what Tal plays.
This is interesting, but what it does, it takes g7 now, rook, and maybe take on h7, but then the knight will be taken on 3. Okay, when attack me on the mess up your queen side, and let's go, let's have at it. So it would. I'm not sure what Fischer would do here. I know what I would do.
What would you do here, Jim?
I would play knight b4, and the reason is that I'm still attacking your bishop, so I'm threatening b takes a5, and I could also recapture the pawn on d4 with the knight, and so to me that would be, but I would be chickening out, frankly, if I did that. But that's what I would do. But instead,
and something else that's kind of interesting. I just noticed in the little opening title that chess.com is giving it, they're calling this the Armenian line. That's interesting. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research.
Yes, I don't know why that is called that. Opening names are often kind of hit or miss in the logic behind them, but it may have been played in Armenia. It may have been played by an Armenian chess player. I'm not sure.
Certainly a rich history of strong chess in Armenia.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody I meet who is Armenian gives me a run for my money at the chessboard.
Yes, Armenia is all of the ex-Soviet satellite countries contain their share of strong players.
BXA5 is what Bobby Fischer plays. Whoa! So he doesn't take G7. Yeah.
Thing and any challenge.
Mm-hmm. Well, he gets the bishop, and then Tal takes his knight. So did Bobby Fischer get the better deal in that exchange because he still has the bishop pair?
Element, the bishop pair that Chris refers to, and an open, this is looking more and more like an open, more territory than the knights can. But you also look at the
yep,
and the pawn means look at the a3 and a5. They're double isolated, which means no pawn can support them. They have to, and pieces don't like to do guard duty. The pawn on 2 is isolated, So they protect it if it advances. So the pawn structure is clearly in black's favor. So white has the two bishops, the pawn structure is in black's favor, and black is up a pawn still, right?
Yeah,
Is
black is up a pawn still.
So material advantage to black, pawn structure advantage to black, the two bishops and attacking chances, and the spatial advantage is with white. And this is where you achieve chess mastery when you can balance the elements involved. Is space more important than time? Is material more important than space? How do you judge these types of things? And your ability to judge them grows over time. And in this case, we have a disagreement between Tal, who at this time is a world champion. He's very strong. He's one of those players like he won and then lost again matches, world championship matches against Botvinnik.
Mm-hmm.
Miguel Botvinnik was one of the greatest players of all time, but Tal was as well. Now Tal was a very, very sharp player, especially in 1960. People used to be afraid he was particularly so strong. But Fischer, even in 1960, this is before Fischer was really at his best. He's a very young player at this point. But he still he didn't believe anybody was better than he was at tactics. So even Mikhail Tal.
That's it's interesting. They ended up becoming Tal actually has a plus score against Fischer overall, but I believe Fischer. Yeah, they became friends, and I seem to remember a story that Fischer got really sick one day and was in the hospital, and Tal was the only.
That's backwards. Tal was in the hospital, and Fischer was the only player to go visit him.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that held Tal back was he was always historically had health trouble. His kidneys were not strong, and he would periodically get hospitalized. But the main thing he wanted to do when he was in the hospital was not follow the doctor's advice, but play chess. So Tal never forgot that Fischer came to visit.
Yeah. Queen takes G7, move number 9.
This is the time. I have to do it now. Store material balance, but to disrupt the black you can't allow a move like knight G7, knight covers the G pawn, attacks your E pawn. Now is the time to take it.
And then rook G8, of course. And then queen takes H7.
Okay, now white established temporarily a superiority. That won't last. Again, the pawn's not being able to. The pawn is extremely weak. So, reading about it in these. This is that you're still in the middle game, but look at the white's H pawn. So it's already this early in the game a pass pawn, and there's a rook behind it, so it can be pushed. Now, is that going to be a factor? I don't know, but it's something that will last as an advantage for white even into the ending. Whatever ending you're playing, doesn't matter. Bishop versus bishop, minor piece ending, rook ending, queen ending. The passed pawn is always an advantage.
And Tal plays knight B to C6.
Right. Now, what to do is catch up and complete his development. Ideally, what to do is play 7, takes A5, and he can at least be competitive and we know that he has on his mind. The rook on G8 is 2 points, so the white bishop without losing that pawn.
And just as a side note, at one time or another, I've looked through all the world championship games. I mean, they're all interesting and worth looking at. And I believe in Smyslov and Botvinnik, um, I believe there was knight d7 instead of knight c6, then knight f3, and then knight f8, threatening the queen.
I did not know, but Smyslov was another great in turn match against Botvinnik.
Mm-hmm.
Smyslov was the world champion. Won it again, and then Botvinnik beat Tal. But world champion, not champion.
Yeah. But it's an interesting little change here. The knight c6 seems more natural. Yeah. And then let's see what Fischer plays. And indeed he does play knight f3.
Okay.
And then Tal plays queen c7.
Yes, that I want. I want the e pawn.
Interesting, yeah, because I mean the a pawn looks so tempting to take.
Yeah,
and you can still develop the queen and take it, but he wants to dominate the center.
The e pawn is what's cramping Black's position. You can remove it. Black has.
Fascinating. And then Fischer plays bishop to b5.
Nice. That the e pawn is indirectly protected.
Yeah.
Because the knight.
So there's a big discussion happening between these two about e5 right now.
Right. And the other idea just said that leaves the g pawn.
Oh my goodness, you're right.
So
very interesting. This is a very exciting game. And I think the conclusion's going to surprise some of our viewers. Let's see. We'll know when we get there. Bishop d7 is what Tal plays.
He does to take.
Mm-hmm. And, I wonder, if he takes the pawn, Fischer's going to play king f1 probably, right? I mean...
I'll play king f1.
And then maybe the rook just needs to go back.
Also a possibility of bishop f4, which protects to trap the rook by retreating.
It's one of those things. So, yeah, what Jim's saying, I'll draw some arrows here, is if the rook takes that pawn, there's this possibility of the bishop f4, and then bishop g3, and then the rook is imprisoned on g2.
Right, so the pawn on e5, which is still cramping Black's position, because if the king moves, the pawn on f7 would fall.
Mm-hmm.
So, it would get pretty dicey for Black, and when we're not sure exactly what's prompting bishop to d7, but we can say that Tal's instinct is, I want to get away from danger. And it also renews the threat of knight takes on e5.
Yeah.
So d7 is a strong move, even though it looks like, he just ate to d7, big deal. But it's got a threat.
And white, Bobby Fischer goes ahead and castles.
Now that I did not expect. Okay, that surprises me. Let me think about this. Wouldn't you play knight takes e4?
Oh, wait, no. Fischer castled. Yeah.
Fischer. Now knight takes e5.
It does, and it's Let's see.
But knight takes e5. Knight takes knight. Queen takes f7 check. So let me think about this just a second. I don't know. And then I don't know. Very, very interesting.
It's very complicated game, and two of my favorite chess players who've ever played, and they had a cool rivalry. Like I said, Mikhail Tal had the better score overall. And let's see, Mikhail Tal castles queenside, so we're castled on opposite sides.
This is his instinct to just run safety. And then is I'm going to do more damage on the king than white. Now white had, because of the pawn on e5, an advantage on the king side, took advantage of it, won the g and the h pawns. But Tal is saying, okay, I'm going to turn the tables on the king side, because now I can play moves like rook h8, rook g8, rook f8, and threaten your king side.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if queen takes f7 right now, then the d rook moves to f8, and it could be threatening rook takes knight because the g pawn is pinned. So there's a lot to consider here. There's also the possibility at some point of knight takes e5 again, because then, you know, if bishop takes bishop check, then knight can take the bishop back. So there's all sorts of things going on here. There's a lot of tactics that only appear in the notes. They don't appear in the moves, because Tal is, for example, seeing the danger in moving away from it. But many players would have snapped that e-pawn up, and who knows what would have happened after that.
And let's see, Bobby Fischer plays bishop g5.
It's enjoyable for me, because this is an unfair game.
Interesting.
Well, most of the Fischer I have looked at, which is later, because he's still quite young at this. He became U.S. champion at 4-6. So he hasn't become the player that he was going to become quite yet. But that's typical Fischer move. He's not defending. He's attacking. He's threatening. He's continuing to threaten. So, you know, the knight. This is indirectly protecting the e-pawn again, because knight takes e5. Really, I don't think it works.
I like that, you know, he finished his development. He's got pawn center. He's castled. His rooks are unified. That's good. The interesting thing, I think, you know, a little bit of my instinct there. I'm tempted by, instead of bishop g5, bishop takes c6. And then if bishop takes c6, then queen takes f7. But I'm sure there's something, there's probably an issue with it that I'm not seeing. Plus, it would open up more lines of attack for Tal. And
exactly. And bishop takes, so it makes. But because it's not on g5.
Yeah.
So it renews the e5, and also queen 7, rook 8, hitting the queen. Queen has to retreat. Where does it go? Has to go to h5 to protect the knight. And so then rook h8 hitting it. It's very, very unclear. So I am with Fischer. I wouldn't take that knight on c6.
Yeah, bishop g5 completes the 3 goals. Pawn and center, castle, unify rooks. Then we have knight takes e5.
Okay, I was wondering when this...
And then Fischer takes back, knight takes e5.
That's pretty much...
And then bishop takes b5.
Because... Not good, because or or bishop follow. There's a lot of tactics through all of them. This bishop takes b5, hitting the rook on f1. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
looks like it's a good move.
Eh,
Now the rook on f1 can move to protect the knight on e5, rook e1, rook fe1,
mm-hmm.
and there's still a problem. But the bishop is hanging on g5 in that case. So what is Fischer up to here? I don't know.
This is, yeah, it's two pieces are being attacked right now.
Yeah.
But Fischer plays knight takes f7.
Okay, so I'm going to take yours.
And that's what happens. Bishop takes f1. Knight takes d8.
And now the knight on e7 is hanging.
Then rook takes g5.
Yes, that.
And then knight takes e6 is a fork.
Amazing, because there's a check. You can't. What's this? Wow. We can say that black is temporarily up. Yeah, and white is pawns for the piece. But look at this 3 connected pass pawns on the king side. Is that worth a piece? Maybe. It's not. But what is Tal going to do about this attack on his queen? He can't let his queen fall. And does he throw in rook takes g2? And then what?
Rook takes g2 is what's played. And, way back when Fischer castled to the king side, I thought, wow, Tal is a guy who likes to sacrifice pieces. Yeah.
Yes. He was known for even incorrect sacrifices, but because he would put his opponents on the defense. And he liked playing offense, and his opponents against Tal burden. It was because he would throw moves at you that were startling and surprising, and so you had to recover your sense of calmness in order to calculate well.
And this is where 100% I would lose, because I would play king takes f1.
Right.
And we'll look at that in a second, because I peeked at that when I chose this game. I peeked at that. King went to h1 is what Fischer played, because he's Bobby Fischer.
Yeah.
But if you play king takes f1, as it turns out, there's this beautiful rook h2, because that queen way back there on c7. Yeah.
So, queen, you could rook takes queen 2, just king takes c7, and rook h1.
Yeah.
White can't defend against. So king take.
It would. It would. And it a quite normal mistake. Yeah. It's where I am pretty sure if I made it this far, that would have been the spot.
Action here. Like, where does the queen move?
King h1, and now Tal's queen needs to get out of trouble, and
check the knight on e7 as well. And there's always the rook takes f1 in the air. So where does the queen go?
This is a surprisingly complex.
It's a very complex game.
Tal plays queen e5. This is one of those you could take to a desert island and analyze.
That is queen takes e2. So that looks like it's hanging, but it isn't.
And then rook takes f1.
Okay, now that is the question. Move. Obviously, rook, you score all your pawns. They're not necessarily, but you are up, and it's still very interesting because now what it does is the knight on e7 hanging. Where can it go? Can it go to rook g6? So if you play queen takes knight, then you have rook takes knight. Well, I'm not sure what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Well, he plays queen takes e6, and then letting the rook go. King takes g2, and then the queen g4 check, and in the view of the perpetual, these guys agree to a draw.
Yeah. It's a perpetual check, of course. Sure has no choice.
Which honestly, and I do this too. I'll look to be going through databases and searching for interesting games, and I look for ones with ones and zeros or zeros and ones and how many moves, and I look at the last few moves and see if there's a really cool winning combination. And a lot of times I skip over the half, the draws. But this was...
Well, we have this term called Grandmaster Draw where people play a colorless game. Mm-hmm. But there are so many wonderful games that end up with the draw.
This was not just one of those, quote, Grandmaster Draws.
Fascinating game.
This, this is just a taste of what's to come between Mikhail Tal and Fischer. And to me, it was really fascinating. Absolutely. It was a French defense. I knew you met Tal and hosted him, and I knew Fischer got you into chess, the Fischer boom. Yeah. And so this, French defense, Tal,
Two
Fischer.
Of my favorites.
Yeah, I got to show this one to Jim. When I saw it, I said, this one, I gotta show to Jim.
And it's a game I had not seen before, so I really appreciate it. But let's be clear that perpetual is forced. The king has to move to h1. It has no choice.
Mm-hmm.
King to g1, and then back to h1. So it's a position.
Yep.
They know that. They see. They just agree to a draw.
Yeah. Now going back, I just want to go back just a couple moves.
Okay.
Because you said that you would have done something different. And
I'm sorry. When the knight on e6, I would not play this. Overlook the fact that black could draw.
Okay. And what was your natural instinct for that then? Instead of queen
rook g6.
Rook g6.
No question I would have played that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, because
I'm still not sure why that isn't a better move, because it seems like you're attacking. Can you play queen takes e? Well, then you can see what and try to play that in.
Well, I think okay, so rook g6, then queen takes e7, and then you've got a pin on the knight, and you're attacking it a second time, so rook takes knight. Black's queen and rook are coordinated, but
I could eventually at a pawn, the f pawn is a pawn. Although they're not connected, that's still very difficult to defend them. But
I think for most people this would still be a draw. But if you're playing, say, Bobby Fischer or Magnus Carlsen, that H pawn would be worrisome in that situation.
Tal took the safest way out.
Yeah, he saw the draw.
If it was a must-win situation for Black, he would have played rook g6.
And he tested Fischer. He tested him, and Fischer passed the test.
Very good point.
Yeah, and so I think it was a a good experience for both players. And hang
Yes.
on, I'm gonna switch windows and shut a few things because I think I wanted to talk about the Eade Foundation and things, but I think our video may be getting overloaded because my computer gets kind of warm as it's
Oh.
going. Let me see if I can do this real fast. Um, well, I can just close that. Boom. And then chessboard disappears. That's kind of a silly way of doing it. But I thought I had. Let's see. Huh. I thought I had a shortcut, but I think.
I'm running out of
Yeah,
time
yeah,
too,
yeah.
Chris.
So I wanted to talk
Great.
about the Eade Foundation. So what's been going on with the Eade Foundation, Jim?
Well, the Eat Foundation is running its course. It's shutting down. There's just more demand than there is supply. And I started in 2019 providing sets and boards and other equipment throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I promised my wife, and if I'm not self-sufficient in 2024, I'll shut it down. And it's 2024, and I'm not self-sufficient. So what we've been doing, it's basically a 501c3 charity, and we've been getting donations. People have been very generous donating money, but the need is so great. Even when we get an established chess program in Uganda and Cape Town, for example, they grow
Mm-hmm.
and they need more sets, and it just never stops. So I've realized that is I'm very proud of the things we did. We ended up building through donations and my own contributions. We ended up building a chess academy in Uganda where it's dedicated to teaching chess. So these are things that are going to stay. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
lasting.
So the
But
organization itself wasn't sustainable, but but the activities that the organization started will be going on for generations. The impact
we
will be
hope
there.
so. I really hope so. And I know that there's a guy in Cape Town, South Africa, who's now a formerly certified by FIDE. He got an acclamation from the mayor, and spread out into multiple schools.
Wow.
Uh, and so, getting something like that started, who knows how long it's going to last? Who knows how many people are going to be involved? And we've helped a lot of kids along the way. And I think when they learn to play chess, their self-confidence grows. And who knows how many lives have been positively affected. So I have no regrets.
Yeah, that's amazing. Of course, I am a little sad and surprised to hear, but it's totally understandable. It is a difficult task and a difficult undertaking, and the nature of the world is things come and things go, but the gift of chess that you brought to Uganda is something that's going to keep growing, and it was never about the your absolute involvement. It was about helping others, and you did that, and so that is wonderful. You've
Thank
guided
you.
them, and the guy got certificates from FIDE, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's once you have so many schools, then you have a community and a future, and that's tremendous. That's tremendous. And then, of course, you're doing the show on remaining calm. You finished your book on addiction, right?
Yes, Freedom is the
Yeah,
title,
yeah.
by James Eade.
And are you going to be writing a book on being on techniques to be calm?
I think I have one more book in me, Chris,
Good.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's an
But
important
right
it's an
now,
important topic.
I'm focusing on the show, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and we'll see where that leads.
Yeah.
but I do sense that I'm gathering material for another book as I go along.
And again, I will. I'm gonna put links to your show up
Thank
on the Daily Chess Musings blog, and I highly recommend that everybody who's in the camp take a moment, watch a little bit of Jim's new show, because chess players we have we put ourselves in a stressful situation, and if you can remain calm in the face of stress, you'll be a better chess player. You'll be a
Absolutely.
better chess player, and Jim can teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Covering your
yeah,
emotions. Don't get too high, don't get too low.
yeah.
Keep it steady. And that's in the long run, that will lead to greater success.
And Jim, thank you so much for coming in today. And
My pleasure, Chris.
we'll do this again.